So, hello. Yes, we're live with some more scintillating Q&A on Joyrider TV. So, gonna steam straight in with a very interesting preloaded question. And I think this probably has happened to most of you out there, most catamaran sailors. All right, so here's the scenario. You're sailing downwind on a broad reach and it is very windy and you need to jibe, and you think every time you bear away to go into the jibe, perhaps the bows dip down and it's like, if we go for this, we are going swimming for sure, we're going to capsize. Now, what do you do to, firstly, to make that jibe happen without the capsize, but also to take the fear out of that particular maneuver as well? I think that's a good opening question to be answering in today's Q&A. Now, this question was actually asked by Hanny, who is in Amsterdam, but she's recently been lucky enough to be in Mauritius, doing some great sailing there with Wild Wind Mauritius. And this high wind jibe scenario did seem to come up. So let's see what we can do to take the sting out of that high wind jibe. So the first thing that we need to do is, there's two types of high wind. Let's go for mega high wind, which means every time you bear away, the bows dip in. So before we try bearing away into the jibe, we do need to make sure that we're sailing in the right direction first, which would be, here's our wind here, and we definitely need to be on a proper broad reach before we try bearing away. So the way we determine, sorry if this is old news to some of you, but the way that we determine that we're on the broad reach, the proper broad reach, is our telltales flying straight across at 90 degrees to the boat, because that is our optimal downwind sailing angle. If we're any higher to the wind than that before we try entering into our jibe, it means that the angle that we have to turn through is too much and the boat will slow down too much going into the jibe, and we're going to stick the nose in almost certainly if the wind is that heavy. Yes. So starting off on our catamaran sailors broad reach, we're just going to talk about with two sails here. We won't talk about sailing with the spinnaker at this time. And then traveller, main sheet, jib. So the traveller, before we go into the jibe, should be, in fact, let's bring up our new acquisition of the large scale boat. God, she's a sticky old girl. All right, so the traveller, before we go into the jibe, should be about between 2/3 and 3/4 of the way out. We're not putting it all of the way out. We're going to have the main sheet looser with the traveller in a little bit, which is going to put more twist into the mainsail. So we're going to start off with the main traveller there. If we've got jib travellers all the way out, and the sails, we're going to trim the sails. Basically, if it's that windy, we'll trim the sails to the amount of power that we can handle. So as we're sailing along, if we feel just on this broad reach that the bows are dipping all the time, we're going to ease the sails out a bit more. Make sure the jib isn't in too tight, because the jib can force the bows down on its own. So make sure that the jib's not in too tight as well. If in doubt, ease it out a bit more. I think that's a good thing to do. So we're still looking at just the sailing before we go into the jibe. Crew positions. Oh, I wonder if these will work. So crew positions, we want to be as far. Can we do that? Can you see that? No, it's the same color. That's not going to work. We want to be as far back on the boat as possible. All right, we're just evolving as we go. All right, so the blue bits are the people on the boat. So we want to be as far back on the boat as possible, really close together. So in fact, these aren't working. Never mind. Right at the back to counteract the amount of pressure on the leeward bow. This is where the action is going to happen. If there's some action about to happen, it's this leeward bow, which might unstick us there. All right. So now we're sailing along. And as we're sailing along on this heavy wind, broad reach, we are likely to encounter areas of more wind and areas of slightly less wind. So to keep the boat sailing nicely, the trick when we get a gust in the really heavy wind broad reach is to respond to it really at the earliest possible time. So if you can, as soon as you feel the gust, that is the time to bear away. And a good idea is to bear away and sheet out at the same time, because by sheeting out, that's going to take a bit more of the pressure off this fella. If we've got a crew, if we can sheet out the jib as well, that is going to help even more. So bear away, and at the same time as bearing away, sheet out. Don't absolutely wang the rudders towards you, because what that might do is force the rudders to act like a brake. Like if we have the rudders over, so to bear away at an angle like this, it's going to slow the back of the boat down, and that is going to make the bows going down sort of action even more significant. So soon as you feel the gust, just gently bear away. And it really is a situation where the more confident you are, the less frightening it will be. So actually that sounds pretty obvious. But the more confident you are with the boat, the more stable and calm everything is going to seem. So soon as the gust hits, you bear away slightly and the boat will just accelerate and should be quite stable at that time. So we still haven't jibed though. All right. So we've got the boat sailing nicely. What do we do when it's time to go for the jibe? Well, this really is where your confidence is almost essential in the heavy winds. If you show the boat fear, the boat is going to give you more fear by responding badly. So first thing we want to do before we go for this high wind jibe is bring the traveller in. So we're not going to bring the traveller into the center, but about the toe strap is a good amount to bring the traveller in. We're still going to have our main sheet loose, but the traveller's coming in, because this means that when it's time for the mainsail to go across, it's going to go across much earlier, which means we'll still have speed at the time when the mainsail goes across. And then when you're ready to go, best time to go, as I've probably mentioned before, is you get a gust. This is if there's gusts. You bear away slightly on the gust. Once you've borne away slightly, the boat's picked up some more speed, but then it's kind of settled. That is the time to go for the jibe, because the more speed that we have going downwind into the jibe, the less load there is going to be in the sails when they come across. So I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Talk about, I've got an allergy to to talking about jibing clearly. Yeah, so the gust comes, you bear away a bit more. This is going to be good because we're going faster, less load in the rig, but also the angle that we're going to have to turn through is less. So we're not going to slow down as much. And then when you're ready to go after that gust, then you just have to steer into the jibe. But the trick is don't straighten up until the boom comes across. If you reduce the angle of your turn before the boom comes across, then what's going to happen is the boat's going to slow down, which means the rig is going to load up with pressure, which means it's going to become more frightening, because all that pressure that you get if you slow down is going to be trying to force the bows of the boat under the water. And it's like because you're probably kneeling on the trampoline facing the back at this point, you're going to see the rudders start to lift out. And yeah, that's when it could start getting a bit wet. So don't straighten up until after the boom has come across. And then hand on the main sheet like this, grabbing the main sheet between the blocks. And as soon as you feel the main sheet go loose, rather than just pulling it across, what I like to do is if I pull it in like this, how can we visualize this? This is tricky. But if you imagine we've got, oh, here we go. We've got the blocks like this with plenty of slack between them. If we pull the rope from here, it's going to very quickly pull the top block more in line with the bottom block, which again is going to help to get the boom to go across earlier, which is what we're looking for. Don't force it. If it's still loaded up, it's not going to happen. But once you start turning, you should feel that this becomes, there's less load in this, and it is possible without too much effort to pull the top block into line with the bottom block. Then that is the time to do it. And then as soon as the booms come across, straighten up and settle on get onto the new side as quickly as you can and look forwards, because we want to see what's going on as soon as we can. And then what? Yeah, and then we're celebrating. We've made it. And yeah, exciting times were there. So what other scenarios could we have in this situation of the heavy wind jibe? Perhaps we're sailing with some waves. Then even better, if we're sailing with some waves, is if we can get the boat going down a wave when we go into the jibe. It's the same as what we're doing here. We're going faster by going down a wave, which is taking the load out of the sail. So it will go across with less of a big slam as it goes across. But the trick, the key to any of it, the jibing, is you need to be confident. But if when you bear away into the jibe, the bows go down, that means you haven't got the boat set up correctly before you're going into the jibe. So then we need to come back to our standard broad reach course, because when we bear away from that broad reach, we should feel that the bows aren't dipping so much, because in fact that should take some of the power off as we turn in. And as long as we don't slow down the turn, then we should have the minimum amount of load in the mainsail when it's time for it to come across. Yeah. So, yeah, confidence. Now, the reason we want to sail as fast as possible is to reduce the load in the mainsail. That is how we're going to get through the jibe, and we're going to get the mainsail across as early as we can. But don't try to pull it across before it gives you that signal of the ropes between the blocks going a little bit looser, that is the time to get it into the middle. Well, I hope that helps. But of course, if you happen to be coming to Vasiliki, and I dare say, Hanny, you will be coming here, then we could go out on a boat and go through some high wind jibes, because it is it's possibly one of the, let's say, the top 5 points of intimidation for all catamaran sailors is the high wind jibe. The high wind bear away, another one. Helming on the trapeze, another one. Not being able to tack, or what happens if I capsize, possibly the big intimidation factors for catamaran sailors when it's windy. All right, so there we go. So hello and welcome to the Q&A, everybody who's just tuned in. You may be wondering, hey Joe, why are you wearing a t-shirt that says 20 on it? Well, funny you should ask. This is, can we see this? This year's Speed Stick t-shirt, just out at totaljoyrider.com. If you want to get hold of one, go over to the Speed Stick leaderboard page, which you may notice there hasn't been that many entries so far this year. And you'll see the 2024 Speed Stick t-shirt and hoodie listed in all sorts of colors. So pick yourself up one after we finished here, or even while we're going with the Q&A. Very nice. All right, so going to check in with everyone who's checking in. We've got Cucks Ollie on board. Have a nice time to everybody, and please push the like button. Yes, please. Thank you very much. We've got Scott coming from Bend, Oregon, USA. Nice to have you dropping in the slot, Scott. Always a pleasure. Hanny is on board, back from Mauritius and in Amsterdam again. Always good to have you on board, Hanny, and glad to see that you had a very nice time down in Mauritius. It is a very nice time down there, that's for sure. Benny's on board in Sweden. Hello to all the cat sailors around the world. Thank you, Benny. Aaron's with us in New Zealand at the crack of dawn, or probably before. I'd have to salute your dedication, Aaron. Or perhaps you work nights. Maybe that's the explanation for that. All right, we've got Ben XM, who I'd like to welcome to the Q&A from Toscana. You'll have to let me know where Toscana is, because I'm not familiar. Jens is with us in somewhere in Germany. Hello, Jens. Great to have you on board. I hope you're feeling better and it's all going well for you. Oh, Hanny says when she was hitting the high wind jibes, there was no crew. Yeah, that possibly adds a little bit more spice. So that does actually raise the topic of the jib. Especially if you're alone on the boat during a high wind jibe, when should you address this issue of the jib? The short answer is afterwards. Definitely make sure it's not too tight in going into the jibe. And in fact, if while you've been sailing on your broad reach, you've felt that you've got your mainsail out quite far, you're at the back of the boat, because you're single-handed, you've actually got slight benefit on these broad reaches, is that if you've got a crew, the crew has to be further forwards than the helm, which puts a bit of weight further forwards. So if you haven't got a crew, that actually means perhaps you don't have that weight in front of you, which is also going to add to the bows going down action. But with the jib, just make sure it's not in too tight going into the jibe, but do have it cleated. Because what we don't want, if you're sailing a boat with a fully battened jib, is the jib wrap, which will happen if you have the jib completely released going into a jibe. The jib wrap is when we get to dead downwind. Maybe we could do it with this. If the jib is loose, the jib wrap is when we go through the jibe. The jib is getting blown outwards this way, but then the sheets probably aren't long enough to go all the way. So when it gets to about here, it gets kind of mangled and really horribly twisted around the front of around the forestay and the front of the boat. So that is why we need some tension in the jib sheets, just to not let the jib go out as far as kind of 90 degrees, because otherwise we might get that jib wrap. What happens if you do get the jib wrap? How do we undo that? If we just try to force it back using the sheets, it's quite likely to damage the jib, in fact. So what we have to do, if we have wrapped the jib around the front, is take the boat back downwind so that the wind is completely behind. And then when the wind's completely behind, just watch the jib, and the jib should just get blown around to the correct side. Then bring the jib sheet in a little bit, just so there's tension there, and then get back onto the course. There we go. All right. So, we've got A-class Catamaran AC Nano in Berlin. Great to have you on board there, AC Nano. Hope it's all going well for you. We've got Eric on board. I'd have to say tip of the hat to Eric. I've seen on Facebook, Eric has been encouraging everybody to come along to the Q&A. Thanks for that, Eric. Much appreciated. He says, what do you mean by straighten up? Yeah, so when the boom comes across, as soon as the boom has landed on the new side, then just make the rudders straight. So stop turning initially. So this fella's a little bit too sticky for this. So if we're going from here to here, what we want to do is we're going to go into the jibe, boom comes across about here, and then we straighten up for a second and then get settled on the new side, look forwards, and then we turn onto our new broad reaching course, rather than boom comes across and we head up straight away. Because if we're not ready on the new side of the boat, looking forwards and in control, it might all get a little bit wild and we might not be, things could happen. Now, if it's a really juicy jibe and you do feel the bows dip a little bit when the boom comes across to the new side, now let's call this a slightly more advanced technique. But what you can do is you go through the jibe and the bows dip a little bit, then we can just take the boat back downwind. So we're going to steer in the opposite direction, and that might just take a little bit more of the sting out of that jibe. The reason that's an advanced level little tweak on the rudders is because obviously if you steer too much, you might jibe again, and then all sorts of things could happen. So if you're, maybe it's worth practicing that kind of S turn in a slightly lighter wind, so you get used to that kind of feel. Like even in like 12 knots of wind, if you go into a jibe fairly fast, you might feel a little bit of a surge of power when the sail fills on the new side. So just try turning back a little bit, and that's going to help to take some of that pressure off just while you get settled. Then get settled, look forwards, and then off you go. That's what I reckon. All right, we've got Stephen on board, I believe, at Grafham. He's probably not at Grafham Water right now, but somewhere in that arena of the UK. Says, if you jibe and you're still on the boat, this is good actually, then it's a good jibe. Yes, agreed. If you jibe and you're not on the boat, then it's a ... Yeah, probably well, it's definitely a swim at that point. All right, we've got Mike on board. Hello, Mike. Mike says cars go fast. Much agreed. Okay, so Hanny says it helps. Yes, let's do that. Okay, that's we're booked in for some high wind jibing at some point in the summer. All right, we got Toot with us from Central Texas. Nice to have you with us as always, Toot. Also, we've got Joachim on board in Argentina, I believe. Thanks for tuning in. Max is with us in Rosenheim, Germany, where it is raining. Shame. Right. Hello to Isaac. Hello to Vinicius. Hello to Toot. We've already hello to Toot. Vinicius is in Brazil. All right. We got Philip on board in Ireland. All right, Eric says, thanks. See you in Ocean Springs. Oh, nice. All right. Yeah, which is a good point to bring up at this point in the Q&A is where is Ocean Springs? Very good. It's quite near to New Orleans, which apparently is pronounced New Orleans, for those who know, in the south of the USA. And why is it of relevance at this time? Well, I could tell you, I'm going to be coming to Ocean Springs to compete in the HOBIE 14 North American Championships, followed by the Midwinters East Catamaran Regatta. Now, when is this? Got it written down on a piece of paper because I'm a pro. The North American HOBIE 14 Championships is at Ocean Springs from the 2nd of April. So just in, what's that, 6 weeks or something? And then from the 5th of April, so the 2nd, 3rd and 4th is the HOBIE 14s. Then the 5th, 6th and 7th is the Midwinters East, which is open to all classes of catamaran. So I can only encourage you guys, if you are in that sort of vicinity of the USA, to come along, get involved. Even if you haven't raced before, it will be a really great opportunity, the Midwinters East especially, to do your first ever catamaran race. Because not only I'll be there on the hand to give you advice and tips of how to survive and enjoy getting around the race course, but there'll be a lot of other experienced sailors there. And everybody's goal for these events is to get people involved and into some catamaran racing. So even if you think, oh no, I've never raced before, I'm a bit nervous about getting involved with racing, come and get involved if you can. If you want any tips on racing for your first time, just check out last week's Q&A, where we took quite a deep dive into what you need to be able to do to get on the race course for the first time. Very informative, I think you'll find. Yeah, and then the weekend before the HOBIE 14s, which would be the 30th and what would that be? 31st. Yeah, the weekend before, I'll be there, and there'll be a buzz around the Ocean Springs Sailing Club, and we're going to look at putting on some speed stick type action, live speed stick sailing. Yeah, so and before we set out onto the water to see what sort of speeds we can get, I'm going to be doing some seminars on how to sail your boat fast, which if you've got a boat rigged up in the boat park, then we can actually look at your boat and we can look specifically on how we can get maximum speed out of your boat, which I think that's pretty nice. So get down to Ocean Springs in April and we're going to have a good time. That's for sure. Very nice. I'm coming all that way, so it'd be nice to see you. There we go. All right. So Stephen says, back to the jibe. Yes, I do the S thing on the jibe when it's blowing. It does make it easier. Yeah, Venetia says high wind jibe, very difficult. Yeah, it is. It is a big confidence thing because it is counterintuitive when you bear away, the bows go down to then continue bearing away when you think that's just going to send them down further, but it's not. They are going to come back as long as you're entering into the jibe with the right preparation, which we just spoke about. All right, Eric says New Orleans. That's how you pronounce New Orleans. There we go. I'm learning New Orleans. Right, I'm gonna work on that. So by the time I get there, I'm not gonna sound like an absolute I don't know what you'd call that. All right, we've got John on board in Western Kentucky. Nice, great to have you with us, John. He's got a 1978 Hobie 16. My son and I love the channel. Well, thanks very much. Great that you've been enjoying the videos. Let us know if there's anything specific that you'd like to know, or you'd like to see, or you can't find. There is a chance, generally, if there's a topic that you don't think I've covered, there is a chance that I have covered it, but you're not going to believe this, but on Joyrider TV, there is now almost 1,000 videos. Yeah. That's a lot of videos. So I have covered most topics, but if you can't find something, let me know and I'll either find it for you or I will make a video on that topic. Or for now, because I'm obviously not on the water at the moment at this time of year, we can talk about it in the Q&A and then I'll go on to make a video about it once I am back on the water. All right, there we go. All right, Alpha B2C is on board. There are videos with subtitles in French and others where there is no option. It's a shame. I would like to take advice. Yeah, I am going to, when I get a minute, which hopefully should be the start of next week, I'm going to start going through the videos, making sure that they are all translated into the languages of most of the people who watch them. Of course, French being one of the main ones. French, German. What else do I like to put on? Italian. Then Spanish, Brazilian, Portuguese, because I know there's a lot of guys in Brazil and South America who watch the videos, and it's nice, even if you understand the English, nice to have that translation going on, because I dare say sometimes Google gets it horribly wrong and it's hilarious, if nothing else. So yes, I will be setting about trying to get the videos translated. It is quite a time consuming process, but so bear with me, but I am working on it. Thanks. All right. So Joachim says, I was planning to go, but I've just started a new job last week. No trip for me. Shame to hear that. But good news about the new job. I think that's always nice. All right. Stephen says, we've been discussing changing the rigging on our Hobie 16s. Freshwater sailing, how often should they be replaced? That's a good question. I'd say freshwater, much less frequent than if you're sailing saltwater. I'd say probably 6 years. I'd go with 6 years. Any more frequently than that would seem a bit excessive because it is expensive at the end of the day. But if it's saltwater, then I've kind of haggled myself down, because before I was saying 3 years, but now I'm going to say every 4 years if you're sailing in saltwater, 6 years if it's fresh. And you may think, hold on, but I've sailed that whole season, I haven't capsized, didn't get it wet. But if your boat is parked next to the sea, you get and you get some onshore wind quite often, then the rigging is going to be getting blasted by this saltwater air, which is going to have that corrosive effect as well. So over, like, if it's exposed like that for a long time, then it is going to diminish the liveliness of your rigging. Sorry, I lost some words there, but yeah, so it is a good idea to replace it. All right, Toot says, what about cowboy? Yeah, unfortunately there's not an option for the cowboy dialect to be used in the translations. All right, Alpha says, in the settings it's marked under the title unavailable on some videos. Have the French translation. It is random. Thank you for your feedback. Yeah, yeah, so from translating videos myself in the past, I believe you click on the button that says CC, which I think stands for closed captions, and then it should give you the option of different languages. But due to perhaps I haven't actually done it, might not mean that there are all of the languages available. All right, Eric says, HOBIE 17. Is there a way to look at your sail and tell if the mast rotation is set correctly upwind and downwind? Single sail for class legal racing. Yeah, that's a tricky one. In my experience, I would say you're not going to see so much if the mast rotation is set correctly by looking at the sail. It's more like the kind of feel that you're getting from the boat. Now, I would, and from experience, so kind of knowing what your settings are for various points, for the points of sail in different wind strengths. And now different classes do react differently to the mast rotation, but generally speaking, for upwind sailing, until you're absolutely overpowered with all of the downhaul on, the optimal angle to have your mast rotation is just behind the shroud. That's a little bit too much. So just behind the shroud, that is the optimal angle to have your mast rotation on most boats with adjustable mast rotation on the upwind course. I would also keep it there on a beam reaching course as well. And then on the downwind course, that would be when you set the mast rotation all of the way out. So you basically release it so it goes all of the way out. There should be a way, like on I haven't seen what the current HOBIE 17 trends are, but on the Formula 18s, you do have a system which means you set the mast rotation and then you have another line which you can release for going downwind, and then you pull that line when you go upwind again, and it pulls it back to where it was previously, so you don't have to worry about making that adjustment. Of course, if all you've got is the spanner bar and a cleat on the boom, if that's all you're allowed to have, then the easiest way would be to use a light coloured rope and put a mark with marker pen on the rope for the various settings that you're going to use for different wind conditions. So you could just pull it, you see that the line you've put on the rope lines up with the cleat, and you're good to go. So the time when you would pull the mast rotation in more is if you're sailing in very strong winds and you've got all of the downhaul on and you're still feeling that you're overpowered. Then we'd want to pull the mast rotation in more, so it's pointing at the corner of the back beam like that. So apologies that I couldn't give you more specifically about the HOBIE 17, but it's not really something I've looked at, is mast rotation and how that affects how the mainsail looks. But perhaps that is something I can look at in the future. Thanks for the question. All right, so continuing. Oh gosh, Eric says an ad played and then froze the video right as you talked about mast rotation. Well, I would have to say thanks very much for that, YouTube. That was some really valuable information I was just delivering. I'm hoping that this is going to come through nicely. Anyway, we're going to continue. Now, I have a question from Greg, which I was intending to answer last week, but I don't think I did. Apologies if I did answer this last week, but as far as I can remember, I didn't. In fact, we'll use these. And Greg's question is quite straightforward. It's just like when ordering new shrouds or rigging on the boat, and you're not getting original rigging, so you're not buying it from the manufacturer. So this is our wire here. There we go. Very nice. Where do you measure it from? Quite straightforward, the answer to this one. You just go to the ends of the what you call them, thimbles, or the eyes, and then you just basically measure the complete length like that. It's a good idea to actually measure the size of the eye as well, because what has happened to me in the past is I've gone to get some rigging made, and the only rigger that I could find was one who most of their work is with yachts, and the size of the fittings that they put on the ends of the wire were enormous. So good idea just to measure the diameter of the thimble here and let the person making the rigging know what size of thimble you need on your rigging. There we go. All right. Philip says, just looked at flights from Ireland to New Orleans, 777 euros. That is a bargain. He says, does anyone need crew? Because Philip is ready to get on an aeroplane and come over to New Orleans. Very nice. All right. Maybe I'll see you there, Philip. I tell you what, if I can, because I won't have a boat the weekend before. So if I can jump on anybody's boat with them that weekend before, then fun times are ahead. We'll take a Velocitech speed puck and go and see what we can get out of your boat without obviously endangering it or being cruel, because catamaran cruelty is bad. All right. Eric says, good info. I use knots for my upwind downwind settings on a cam cleat on the boom. All right, nice. A cam cleat on the boom. Perfect. All right, we've got Declan on board. Hello, Declan. Great to have you with us as always. And great opening question. Yeah, I thought so too. The high wind jibe is, I think it's on everybody's list. You know, I get concerned sometimes when it's really windy, but what I do, and if you've been watching the videos for a long time, you will notice that when it's windy and I'm not doing something specific, I will jibe a lot more often than I'll tack, because it kind of keeps me jibe ready for when I need to jibe. So it's like I'm always, if it's windy, I will make a point of putting in the high wind jibe as part of my personal development, my personal training, so that I know that when I need to do a high wind jibe, I should be okay. And yes, occasionally I do stick the nose in and bin it. But to be honest, I've only started pulling the traveller in before the jibe in the last 5 years or so. And since I've started doing that, I'm not stacking it on the jibes that much. So there we go. Pull your traveller in. All right. We've got Eric on board. I think it's Eric. Greetings from Melbourne, Florida. Oh, Philip. Here we go. This is actually happening. Philip in Ireland. Philip, if you get a ride at Ocean Springs, I'll put the HOBIE 18 in. Nice. Joe, Formula 18 the weekend before. Very nice. Yes. Sign me up. I am into all of it. We'll get stuck in with some good sailing. All right. Very nice. Okay. I've got another preloaded question. And because of the later start time, I'm going to have to say no further questions in the live chat now, please, because I've got to go for dinner shortly. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble, or I'll have cold dinner, which, you know, nobody wants cold dinner. All right. So I've got a question from Zach. This is a follow on from last week's chat, and it's about rules on the race course when marks are involved. All right. So if you're going to be racing at Ocean Springs or anywhere and you haven't raced before, this is one of the rules which can kind of confuse a little bit, perhaps. Yay, Philip's coming. Right, nice one, Philip. Get that flight locked in and I'll see you there. Excellent stuff. All right. So if we're considering that our race course has got two buoys, upwind mark, we'll call that the windward mark, and a downwind mark, are there any special rules that we need to be aware of at the windward mark? Generally speaking, no. You know, at the sort of starting level, there's not anything that we need to worry about unduly, because if we're coming into the mark on starboard tack like this, if we're on starboard tack, we have right of way over any boats that are on port tack. So this is port tack, this is starboard tack. Port is because the wind is coming over the left side of the boat first. So we have right of way if we're on starboard tack. So this boat here doesn't have any rights to make us alter course as we go round the buoy. Good so far? So in a port and starboard incident at the windward mark, it is the same as if the mark wasn't there. So if he's coming in, perhaps let's put him back. Sorry there. If we're a little bit further up here, what he can't do, sorry, his sail's on the wrong side, is tack underneath us and then start pushing up like this above his proper course. You know, with the sails flapping to try to get round the buoy, he can't push us up like that if he's just tacked underneath us. That's the only extra bit to that rule. So port and starboard, windward mark, port has to give way to starboard. So as we're coming in, if you're the port tack boat and we're sort of back here and we can see that we're on a collision course, this guy isn't going to give us any space to get through here. So we need to take some sort of action. And maybe there's some other boats here. Going back, what we need to do is look down the line of boats which are coming in, find our gap, and work out where we are going to tack to get around the buoy. But the best course of action is actually to rewind from here, take it back before we put in the tack here, and think, okay, if we tack a little bit earlier, so we've gone up here on starboard, maybe we'll tack there. So if it's a busy fleet, what we don't want to be doing is coming into the buoy on what would be called the port ley line. Ley line means these are the angles that we could actually hit the buoy on. So we don't want to be coming in on the port ley line if it's a busy fleet, unless we're coming first or we're coming last, because at any other position, we're likely to encounter heavy traffic, which aren't going to give us any room. Much better is to tack a good 10 boat lengths back or more from the port ley line. So when we come in, we're going to have more space to maneuver to get around the buoy. There we go. That's the windward mark. So if we look at the leeward mark, this is where it gets more interesting. And this is definitely where it gets interesting even more if you're in a mixed fleet. But what we have around the buoy is an imaginary 3 boat length circle. So it's all down to people's judgment, which is why sometimes there are these things called protests where somebody thinks that you infringed a rule and you think that you didn't, and that is why sometimes there's a protest. But let's not talk about that right now. So if when a boat sails in to this 3 boat length circle, if he is clear ahead of a boat to windward, then the boat to windward isn't entitled to any room. Now, this is the same if you're sailing the same type of boat or if you're sailing completely different boats. So perhaps you're sailing your 12-meter classic yacht and there's optimists on the race course, then it's the same. And for the safety of this situation, we'll take the 3 boat lengths from the bigger boat. So it'll be 3 times 12 meters, 36 meters, if that was the situation. And if boat 1 doesn't have an overlap on boat 2, then he's not entitled to any space to go around on the inside as we go around the buoy. If, however, and I'm just going to illustrate this by extending his bows, if he has what's called an overlap, which means the front of boat 1's boat is in front of the back of boat 2, and what we take is we take a line like this. So if he has this overlap, then it means that boat 1 is entitled to room to go around on at the inside of this buoy. Is this good stuff? I think so. Yeah, so you've got rights, and it's always a good idea to do a bit of shouting on the race course. So in this situation, boat 1 would shout to boat 2, water at the mark. That is the general request. Boat 2 will say, only too happy to oblige. And he then just has to give boat one enough space to sail around the buoy. There we go. And because of how the overlap works, if there was another boat coming in here, now this boat has an overlap. He's inside this line of both of these boats. So this boat has room to come in, jibe, take the inside line around the buoy. Now, if we were sailing in a course where we're going around the buoy the other way, we might actually, if you can imagine reversing this situation. So this boat is actually here, this boat is on starboard tack, which you might think, well, that's straightforward then. But if this situation was reversed, like if we're sailing round a course that has a gate like this, so maybe going around this buoy the other way, you might have a boat coming in on starboard tack, on port tack, and he's got rights to go around the buoy on the inside. So that is one of the only situations where a boat on port tack has right of way over a boat on starboard tack. There we go. So I'm going to leave that there. Hope that helps there, Zach. And okay, what else in the live chat? We got Ryan on board in Maui. Great to have you with us, Ryan. Declan said, would you post details for Ocean Springs on the Discord server? Yes, I should do. I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't visited the Discord server for some time. I hope it's all been going nicely over there. Toot says sailors are so polite. Oh, yes, they are. It's a gentleman's sport at times. Very good. Something else before I log off is you may have been drawn your attention drawn to the fact that I need help in designing a set of sails for a HOBIE 16. Now, there's been a lot of chat actually on Facebook about getting, I don't know if you've seen the work of Chris Picknally, who does these amazing sails. Basically, he gets plain sails and then he paints them and they look absolutely stunning. It is really amazing what he's doing. But that is not what we're into at this on this occasion. What we're into is deciding on what the panel layout, the colors should be on my new, spoiler alert, I've been given an old HOBIE 16 as a leaving present from Wild Wind Sailing Holidays, and it is what I am making my project boat. So part of this project is to have a new set of sails, which Chip at Whirlwind Sails is making me a set of sails, but there is too much choice of what colors they should be. So I want you guys to choose what colors they should be. I'll take everybody's ideas and look at them all, and whatever I like the best is going to be the winner. Whoever designs the winning sails, which get made, not only do you have these bragging rights of I designed those sails, yes, I'm the best, and seeing them on all of the Joyrider 16 videos, but also I'll send you and your crew a t-shirt with those color sails on, those sail colors on the t-shirt for you to just add to this feeling of success that you will be enjoying. So there we go. Get involved. If you want to get involved, in the description of this video, there are instructions of what you need to do. But inside information coming your way right now. So even if you've already submitted some sale colors, you can put in another more ideas, because I feel that the more ideas that come my way, the more chance there is that there's going to be something which really pops and works for me better than anything else. And that is what I'm looking for. Here's the inside information. The HOBIE 16 they'll be going on is white. Good information. This is the first announcement on this one, but also on this project boat, I'm going to be supplied a trampoline from Salt City Sailing, who I think make the best value, decent trampolines you can get for catamarans, which aren't the original from the manufacturer. Now, this is going to be the curveball. The trampoline is not going to be black. It's not going to be grey. It's going to be an orange trampoline with grey trim. Yes, you heard it here first. So does that influence your design? Maybe. I don't know. But there we go. Here's some other things that I'd like to see a bit more of in the designs coming in, is perhaps having the jib, not each panel a different color. Maybe the jib all one color, maybe the jib all one color apart from the top panel in a different color. That might be nice. And I'd have to say I do like a bit of white on the sail. Not necessarily, but it is something I've liked in the past. So there's some inside information, which let's call that a reward for being watching the Q&A all the way to the end. So I would have to say thanks for sticking around. And even if you've sent designs in already, you can put in some more. Maybe just tweak the designs you've already sent in if you like, or brand new, or if you haven't entered. I just want to get as many people entered as possible. The deadline is next Friday. So next Friday's Q&A. So there we go. So thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks for getting involved. Get over to totaljoyrider.com and get your 2024 Speed Stick t-shirt or hoodie, because you need one. And I think it's a good idea. What else? Yeah, I'll be back soon with some more. Probably next Saturday is more likely than next Friday for the next Q&A. But just have a look on the channel and that will let you know which day that is coming up once I've decided. Thanks very much. See you soon on Joyrider TV with some more. Thank you. Thank you. Dinner time.